As I look around all of this park here, there's one thing I know to be true. Todd was loved. I remember him happy and laughing in nearly all of my memories. And I now wonder how much work it was to hide parts of him that he was unsure how to show. Sometime in the past year, he told me that the first time he thought about killing himself, he was 10, and the first time he tried, he was 18. Death by suicide still remains very shameful, and I refuse to let that narrative be what defines his death. Before I start, though, I feel the need to make a very important qualifier, because as I talk about Todd's death, I want to talk about long-term depression and suicide. But I can't talk about that without acknowledging the epidemic of teenage suicide we have across the country. It crushes me to think of young children making very permanent decisions to what I hope are very temporary problems. And my hope is that children who are struggling to talk about hard things and live in uncomfortable emotional spaces can build skills to communicate their experiences and find joy after sadness. I will always wonder if Todd's story could have ended differently if he had had these skills or societal permission to talk about the darkness earlier on in his life. Please know that what follows is only my attempt to give my beloved brother some grace that he has been searching for all of his life. There still exists a large stigma surrounding mental health and addiction diagnoses. And sometimes depression can be mild or situational, but for others it is truly a lifelong condition. But compared to other conditions that are considered terminal, like cancer, those people are called brave and warriors and can end their life with grace and compassion on hospice. But people who suffer from depression or choose death by suicide are called selfish, losers, quitters, or failures. And my brother was anything but. I would argue that depression in certain people is just as terminal as many other illnesses, but it is often more invisible, underfunded, and thus hard to understand. And for those of us left after someone dies by suicide, there are countless questions and intense feelings that go unanswered, that range the spectrum from anger and bewilderment to guilt and deep sadness. We ask what if questions over and over, maybe changing the narrative slightly, if only to punish ourselves for the things that we should have known that might have made a difference in our loved ones' decisions. I once read an article that attempted to describe death by suicide to survivors that were angry and unable to understand what could drive a person to make such a choice. I want you to imagine that living with depression and/or addiction is like living inside a burning house all of the time. And sometimes it's just a little smoky in your house. Sometimes the sun is coming in through the window and you can see through it a little bit, but you don't actually get to leave. Some days you're getting singed, but you're okay and you can cope. But on many days you're actually on fire. And you spend enough of your days in your life on fire to know that many of your remaining days will look the same. And you can choose to live in that fire, burning alive daily for the rest of your life. Or you can jump 50 stories down just once and put the fire out. Now I want you to all picture your loved one. Picture my Todd, literally on fire in front of you. And you have tried to put the flames out repeatedly, as we all have for many years, but nothing has worked. Would you ask him or anyone you love to roll around burning alive in front of you for even one more minute, let alone the rest of their life? And universally the answer is no. We would never ask that. We would let them put the fire out. And while my heart is shattered into a million pieces that will never find their way back to their original shape, I would never ask Todd to remain on fire. So, to my dearest brother, while you never felt it, you were always enough, which is all that any of us can ever hope for. And while my broken heart is immensely lonely already without you here, I will spend the rest of my own imperfect days loving you and seeing you perfectly.